Hello, Hermit. So, I want to review the paranormal TV show Paranormal Lockdown. There's has seemed to be just a boom of paranormal shows lately, and uh, from one point of view, that is very positive because it shows an increased interest in the field. An increased interest can only lead to more knowledge. On the other hand, when something becomes an enormously big business, the chance of things just being fake increases. And yeah, that being said, I did enjoy this show for the most part. Paranormal Lockdown is led by Nick Groff, who used to work with Ghost Adventures but was fired of that team for some conflicts with that team's leader. And he has with him Katrina Weidman, and I don't remember what our cameraman is called, but anyway, it's a very, very similar concept to Ghost Adventures. Only that in Paranormal Lockdown, they spend 3 days at a location instead of one. Basically, they go to some location, they are locked in there, and they go around investigating, including mostly using various forms of electronic measuring devices, looking for EVPs and the like. One thing I do like is that makes a lot of sense is that they have it over a 3 day period because that means they sleep there, and since a lot of people experience paranormal things, basically when they wake right when they wake up from sleep or when they're going to bed, basically when you are in your most vulnerable state, it makes sense to have that as part of it. The whole thing being locked in there, I think that's basically as gimmicky, and it doesn't really make sense to me. I mean, seriously, it's just a way to try to make the whole thing more spooky. And I'm not really in favor of that. And that's really one of the problems with the show, really, because in the first season, there's 2 seasons out, and I think they are producing a third one. But anyway, in the first season, there are a lot more investigations of that are of a positive nature, or at least not over the top negative. But apparently, and that's one of the things I have always had a problem with here, clearly. A problem with when it comes to Ghost Adventures, that there is demons everywhere. They find demons everywhere they go. I mean, imagine they could look into the coffee they just bought. Oh, well, demon. And the first season isn't like that, but apparently that didn't draw enough viewers. So we are back to the everything is negative and everything is demons, and yeah. And first of all, I think those kinds of things spread fear about paranormal. But also, I think that there are so many more hauntings that are done by kindly old grandfathers that want to watch out for their grandchildren, or some old lady that are just upset about what the new owners of her house are doing with the rose garden. Then there are, oh, we have this person that was a mass murderer and he is now out to kill people. Who has a bit of a problem doing that because he's a ghost, but he wants to, and there's demons, and there's. Yes, those things happen. And yes, violent death would release a lot more energy, so there might be a greater chance of that leading into haunting. But there's just so many more people who live perfectly ordinary lives and that doesn't mean you don't have strong emotions for something. That is why I really prefer, for example, a Norwegian show called The Power of the Spirits, where yes, they encounter negative entities every now and again, but for the most part, it's regular people that's just for some reason or another have unfinished business and haven't crossed over. So the first season of Paranormal Lockdown is better at that. Another complaint I might have is that it's the same locations that, for not all of them, but it's a lot of the same locations you see in all of these shows. It's these famous haunted buildings. And first of all, while they might be interesting to investigate those buildings, it's also very easy to basically you know what you're looking for. Secondly, there's people all over that experience these kinds of phenomena. And I find it much more interesting when they investigate some regular person's home than investigating the monk house for the 10,000th times, or these various prisons and asylums that are rumored to be haunted. Because that shows more that these things happen to everybody. Well, not to everybody, but it can happen to anybody and at any location. It's not just in some famous ghost house, but people all over have these experiences. So there I've stated some of my complaints with the show. One of the good things about it is that I do watch Ghost Adventures, but at times it can be very, very, very macho. I mean, don't get me wrong. I have no problem with a man being manly, but when you see this desperate attempt to be tough all the time, and I really, really, really don't like Zack. He basically acts very much like an asshole a lot of the time, both to spirits and to his companions. I do understand that Nick Groff eventually had enough of him, and that can become a bit irritating, and you don't have that there. I think that including a female investigator actually is a very good idea, because that keeps things a little bit more stable. So that's a good thing. I can say also that they are very thorough. And while using various ghost boxes and ovulas is not my favorite form of investigation, because I feel that it's just like using a pendulum. If you go into more spiritual methods, it's very easy to get false readings. But even so, they are very thorough. And if it's real, they get a lot of good evidence. And of course, with any show, even my favorites like The Power of the Spirits, there's always this question has it been faked? Because you're not there, you're not experiencing it, and it's easy enough for a producer to just rig this. But if it haven't been rigged, if it is real, then they get a lot of interesting experiences, and they are very thorough, and as such, the episodes are quite enjoyable. I do prefer Paranormal Lockdown to Ghost Adventures. I do hope that they make a third season, because it is a pretty good show. It's not my favorite paranormal show, and I have to admit that I prefer shows that bases itself more on psychics than on a lot of these electronic things. But of course, those electronic things gives better evidence from a scientific point of view. One thing I also would have liked is for there to be background checks when they discover something. Let's say they get over the ovilus, or they get a EVP that says a name. Then go back in the history of the location and check that. That's one of the things I really like about The Power of the Spirits, that basically the first section is the family of the home or the owner of the business they're investigating, telling about their experiences. Then you have one section where the psychic is walking around and basically saying what they feel. And then the last section is the producers going through the material they got and seeing if they can find some of that. Because that's really what's interesting when you hear somebody say, oh, Sarah. But then you find out that, yeah, there was a little girl named Sarah living here 200 years ago. And that would have made it more believable. So yeah, I would give this show 6.5 out of 10. Paranormal Lockdown is a pretty decent show. It is definitely not the best one I have ever seen, but I do like it. And I would say that if you like Ghost Adventures but want something that's a little bit less macho and a little bit less of three guys running around and fooling around more than they do investigating, and a little bit less of sex posturing, but still have basically the same concept, then Paranormal Lockdown might be the show for you. If, however, you didn't like Ghost Adventures at all, then chances are you won't like this either. So yeah, that is my review of Paranormal Lockdown. I came over the episodes on YouTube, but I will look to see if I can find a DVD on it now that I have seen it. It is definitely worth buying for me. But I'm sure that if you look around, you can find out where you can see it. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this review. Have a great day, and blessed be.